But then we move on to, developing issues out of the Natasha versus Senate President Godswill Akpabio sexual harassment allegation. But of course, remember that, we had protesters, pro-Natasha protesters actually find themselves at the front of the National Assembly. Of course, heightened tension yesterday. Supporters of, Natasha Akpoti clashed with those backing Senate President Godswill Akpabio amid the ongoing crisis in the Senate over sexual harassment allegations against Akpabio. And of course, Senator Akpoti, who represents Kogi Central, met with a rousing reception from her supporters upon her arrival at the National Assembly yesterday. So, of course, now it's a matter of everybody's side is trying to speak for their own, in defense of all of this. But, at the end of the day, first of all, police had to use tear gas to disperse them, and they have been given 24 hours ultimatum to disperse, from the National Assembly premises. Of course, I mean, look at the mammoth crowd that we literally have, people coming out to support, either, Senator Akpabio or Natasha Akpoti. Now, remember that the baseline in this conversation has continued to be that whatever is done, to Natasha Akpoti, we must first of all remember that she represented people. So whether there are conversations of she being shut down, her voice not being heard, or any kind of malignment, we have to remember that she is representing Kogi Central people. So it must be addressed that way. It's not about just saying, oh, Natasha Akpoti is this, is that. When you think of that, remember that she is an elected representative of the people. But I mean, this is the rousing crowd that, we had outside the National Assembly, people coming out to support, Natasha Akpoti. And most, the critical thing here, people coming out and asking that the Senate President must go. I don't know if Nigerians do not also study process and what's possible within, the bandwidth of certain issues. But, people were outside bearing, placards and asking that a blackmailing Senate President must go.
It's hilarious. For most Nigerians, this is sponsored. For other Nigerians, this is just people who are trying to speak for themselves. And the House is divided. But of course, just like we had, people protesting for the Senate President to go, let's go to some of the visuals of people who are protesting also that Senator Natasha must apologize to the Senate President and Nigerian women. Like we said, in every action, in every for every action there is a counter reaction. So we had supporters of Senator Natasha calling on the Senate President's resignation. And then, of course, on the other side, we had women all across Nigeria also gathering to protest what they call the insult of Senator Natasha on the person of the Senate President. And, of course, as you see, United Women for Good Governance have called on Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan to apologize to the Senate President, the Senate, and Nigerian women. Of course, we say no to Natasha's serial blackmailing. Akpabio treated Natasha as a daughter and friend, and different inscriptions found on the placards during that protest. So it's a mixed reaction when you look at the narrative coming from the National Assembly, the reactions coming from Nigerians. First off, a few days ago we saw Kwamon women protesting and of course demanding that Senator Natasha should, as a matter of urgency, apologize for stand at the floor of the National Assembly. But here's the intriguing thing for me here. Remember, when Senator Natasha appeared on national TV in our sister station, she talked about virtually sexual harassment. That was at the center of her conversation. Yes. It was all about sexual harassment. And then, of course, we saw the news where she filed the defamation, and sexual harassment suit against Senator Akpabio, and of course, his aide, who made a post on social media describing hairdress as transparent dresses. And of course, in the word of the Senate President's aide, Senator Natasha thinks the House of Assembly or the National Assembly is all about wearing transparent dresses and pancaking her face. That was the context of the phrase that generated the action that Senator Natasha took. But on the floor of the House yesterday, for the first time, she made the move to present a petition to the National Assembly. And of course, that was countered by senators across board at the floor of the National Assembly. And part of the reason that has been given is that, according to the rule books, when you look at the rule book, one of the highlighted issues is that a senator cannot present a petition that he or she is a signature to. So that goes back to the whole conversation of having to understudy processes and procedures at the floor of the National Assembly. And like I said, and like every Nigerian would say, and every analyst and legal practitioner who have commented on this, yes, Senator Natasha was moved from her seat, but different narratives are coming up to the fact that from the moment Senator Natasha, as a matter of fact, there are insinuations, comments coming from the National Assembly that particular day where the seats were arranged and Natasha, alongside 4 other senators, were relocated to a different position, it was the first time she came early to the National Assembly. And when she came, she was told, this is the reality of things. Your seat have been changed. That is your seat. Other senators have been changed. Other senators went and took their seat. But she, on the other hand, reportedly flipped her name tag from her new position, went back to her old position, placed it, and sat down before standing up to speak. When the chief whip now said, look, Senator Natasha, Senate President Senator Natasha cannot speak from where she's standing because she has been moved to a different position, and she can only speak or raise a point of order standing from that position. So when you look at all of the dynamics and the reactions and counter-reactions coming from all of this, it raises the question, and my mind run back to Saraki. Remember during the Saraki era when some politicians had some beef with him and wanted a situation to push him out of office, what came to play was a very lame excuse that we saw reports of a vehicle that was used for armed robbery somewhere in Nigeria with the nameplate Saraki. And that was what erupted the protest and got some Nigerians gathering in the street and calling for the resignation of Saraki. For the group of politicians, that was enough ground for Saraki to resign. That was enough ground for him to be pushed out of office. But did we succeed? Did they succeed with that move? Of course the answer is no. So this now puts Nigerians' mind to, could this be a move by some disgruntled element within the National Assembly? Remember of recent, from the, what's his name again? The Northern senator who stood up against
Aline Dume?
No, not Aline Dume. There was a senator, his name is eluding me, who stood up against the Senate President and said he was speaking on behalf of the Northern senators. During the constituency money distribution, where he said some senators were getting a lot more money than some other senators. So, okay, now, when you consider all of the things that have happened over time, you would ask the question, what really is the reason behind Senator Natasha's move? And especially when you consider their relationship, family friends, family relationship, the length of years they have been together, it could easily be understood from people who are absolute strangers and your only connection and your only contact is the National Assembly. But when you now have, you had been friends before even coming to the National Assembly, oh yeah, it's like you and me going on national TV independently and trying to throw counter accusations and accusations on each other and what has this one has done and what this one has not done. When we know within our environment, within the confines of our relationship, we can talk things out. These are the two angles that Nigerians are looking at. Because if you are a friend and you are sincere to your friend, there is literally nothing two friends cannot sort out. And if the women in question cannot sort it out, then the men can always come to reasoning.
Well, it has already been brought to the public, so public opinion has now had a strong sway on the entire issue. Just as, you know, Senator Natasha tried to bring the case then on plenary floor yesterday, it's more like medicine after death. If she had sexual harassment, you know, allegations against the Senate president, there is an order, you know, within the National Assembly that would have been reported and it would have been handled. But, you know, swinging public opinion off is first of all before trying to now follow due process, it kills the strength of the conversation. But as we see strong protest in support of Senator Natasha Akpoti, also remember that in a couple more days we are celebrating the International Women's Day. So it's definitely going to be, you know, thick, you know, at the head of the conversation with regards to, you know, harassment of women in the workplace, political space, and all of that. It's going to make part of the key conversations that, you know, we have. But then this continues to be calls for due diligence to be done with this. But with the court also barring the National Assembly from going on to discipline, you know, Natasha Akpoti on any grounds on this issue, that's another matter entirely. But let's go on now and take Senate President's stand where, you know, disregarding women is concerned and where he refuted any attempts at sexually harassing Natasha Akpoti.
To 2025, HB 1277, third reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the establishment of the Orthopedic Hospitals, Biliri, Gombe State, under the control of the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board and affiliated to Federal Teaching Hospital, Gombe State, and for related matters 2025, third reading taken. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the establishment of the Orthopedic Hospitals Biliri, Gombe State, under the control of the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board and affiliated to Federal Teaching Hospital, Gombe, and for related matters 2025, HB 1277, third reading taken and passed. So let me thank my colleagues for expeditious passage of this bill, which was actually for concurrence as it came from the House of Representatives. I thank the committee for working on it, and I also thank all those who have contributed to this. And I congratulate the good people of Biliri.
Ever envisaged that a day like this will come in the life of the 10th Senate, but it has come. And we still have to do what we have to do in overriding public interest. Because it's not about the single Senator Natasha and the Senate President. It's about the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I urge all our colleagues to note two things. One, Order 40, sub 4, says no senator bringing a petition shall be the author. The essence of this rule is to allow us as elected representatives of the people, senators, to present and lay petitions on behalf of our constituents. The alternative to that is the matter of privilege, Order 10. That's what we can do. Not to bring a petition. Mr. President, I sympathize with you. As a man being accused of sexual harassment, I am not going to comment on that because there will be an ample opportunity for the relevant authorities to deal with that. But I know, dear colleagues, that distinguished Senator Natasha went to court on a matter, the committee. Mr. Senate President, you were being emotional because you didn't want to be seen as trying to...
That your denial, your refusal to accept and treat my petition before the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Abuse of my privileges, and I say forth, that this matter is not sub judice, it is not before the courts. The matter before the courts
is Senate should not receive or deliberate on any matter to which actions are pending in any court of law. Senate should not receive or deliberate on any matter to which actions are pending in any court of law. Before I rule, I would like to hear the opinion of Senator Natasha regarding the rules.
Thank you very much, Senate President. Again, I'm Senator Natasha, representing the good and virtuous people of Kogi Central. I beg to differ that this matter is sub judice, and I stand unprivileged.
Ever and we say, we cannot be emotional about it. We are guided by two things. Actually, three different things. We are guided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ever and we say, we cannot be emotional about it. We are guided by two things. Actually, three different things. Ever and we say, Senate, it's not about committee on ethics. It's not about waiting for the committee to take a decision. It's about whether this matter is right to be referred to the committee. Mr. Senate President, Evans and we say emotional about it. We are guided by two things. Actually,
well, of course, we apologize for the discrepancies with the video. We'll try to sort some of them out, but then critical issues have been stated by, one of the senators sitting in the House. You're talking about, there is due process as to how things are supposed to be done. Skipping it and expecting the same results can never be the same. So apart from this, no need to be sentimental about, these are strong allegations about the Senate President. Nobody is watering down, those allegations. But just as that, Senator has said, it is a matter that is representing the entirety of the National Assembly, as it were. It is a picture being painted, and something must be effectively done in the in the course of due process. But that's something that, Senator Natasha skipped. I mean, yesterday she was escorted to plenary by her husband, which of course also caused a lot of, commotion in terms of reaction by netizens. The question is your husband now a senator, getting to plenary? But others would argue he was just there to give his wife emotional support, in the midst of all that is happening. He never could have known how her, plenary sitting after all that has been said and is being done, was going to go. But it's important to see how this is addressed. But the Senate President has restated the fact that he respects women and, does not have anything against any person in particular. He has, restated his regard for women and has strongly denied sexually harassing Senator Natasha Akpoti. Now, of course, reiterating his respect for women in general, he said he was aware that matters were in court and had strongly insisted on clearing the air of falsehood trending about him. We also want to know that comments came as Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions yesterday throughout Akpoti Uduaghan's petition against Akpabio. So she attempted to move a petition herself against the Senate President, which we've seen the Senate, the senator talking about the fact that she cannot move a personal motion, except it's like, a motion for her constituents. Yes. So that is a different case entirely. Now, of course, Akpabio asked the committee to commence investigation into the allegation of sexual harassment leveled against him. Now, there's going to be subsisting court orders, subsisting court appearances, and how it comes back to affect the whole matter. But once again, I'll borrow the words of, my guest yesterday, who said, with most of these issues that we're having, diplomacy would be key in sorting them out. One conversation, man to man, woman to woman, we should have been done prior to this time. But even as at this time, it's something that can still be done, to handle this particular leader. Now, Kwemi Bamidele, who spoke earlier, trying to straighten out what order is supposed to be, supposed to be followed through by Senator Natasha Akpoti. But the bigger question is, how does this affect her activities? Are we able to put all biases aside after all of this blows over and we continue to do the business of representing our constituents?
Well, the question is a big one, but of course, it is going to come from two sides. Thus, Senator Natasha, has she learned anything? Is she learning anything from what is transpiring? Let's not forget in a hurry, one of the things that the Senate President spoke to when all of this, blew up, was the fact that senators who come to the National Assembly, or National Assembly members who come in through the court and have missed out the training period of being thrown and shown what is obtainable within the hallowed chambers, the procedures, the processes, literally understanding the rule book and knowing what to do, how to go about doing it, and of course achieving the best for your constituency, for the committee that, if you're blessed to be given one to lead and to supervise, and then of course for your constituency. But of course, that comment so far, if you look at the move that Senator Natasha has made, you would also be tempted to ask, is she not reading the rule book of the National Assembly to know that, these are things that cannot go, these are things that can go, these are things that I can do, and these are things I can't not do by virtue of my position as a senator representing my people. But aside from that, there is another concern, the question of how our other colleagues are going to perceive her. If you look at some of the footages that came from the National Assembly yesterday during the plenary, senators at the beginning of the plenary, before the arrival of the Senate President, converged around Senator Natasha. Now, while some people saw that as, their declaring of support for her, others saw it as, especially as most of the conversation was inaudible, saw it as a move by the senators to get her to do what is right, to calm down, to look into the rule book and know what can be done, when it can be done, and how it should be done. At the end of the day, like the senators who, spoke to some of the infractions that she has brought upon herself and by extension our constituency, it is not about being on social media. It is not about going on, in the mainstream media to lay accusation. And she herself said it on the floor of the House. She did not file any legal battle against the Senate President based on, sexual harassment, but rather based on defamation of character. So how is it that your lawsuit is on defamation of character and you are going on national TV and you're talking about sexual harassment? And then you're looking at, the inconsistency in her story is a cause for concern for most Nigerians as well. It's a serious cause for concern because Nigerians expect that if you're going on to initiate a litigation against the Senate President and his aide, and your target is defamation of character, if you did not highlight sexual harassment, what then instituted, what then prompted, what then inspired sexual harassment?
If you're not trying to sway public opinion.
Exactly. For you to now switch from the defamation suit that you have taken before the court to now talk about sexual harassment. So this is the question. These are the questions. These are the concerns that Nigerians have asked.
All right, we'll just take a break with Babidele and, the video we're trying to share earlier, just to get perspective from the horse's mouth.
That a day like this will come in the life of the 10th Senate, but it has come. And we still have to do what we have to do in overriding public interest. Because it's not about the single Senator Natasha and the Senate President. It's about the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I urge all our colleagues to note two things. One, Order 40, sub 4, says no senator bringing a petition shall be the author. The essence of this rule is to allow us as elected representatives of the people, senators, to present and lay petitions on behalf of our constituents. The alternative to that is the matter of privilege, or that 10. That's what we can do. Not to bring a petition. Mr. President, I sympathize with you. As a man being accused of sexual harassment, I am not going to comment on that because there will be an ample opportunity for the relevant authorities to deal with that. But I know, dear colleagues, that distinguished Senator Natasha went to court on a matter, then appeared on RnS TV on another matter, talking about sexual harassment. And the wife of the President of the Senate, Mrs. Uloma.
Well, we still seem to be having the same issue, but let's take the Senate President's response. We'll take the Senate President's response, and then that's just where we'll wrap it up on that particular issue. There are subsisting and overlapping judgments as to what should be done. Should she be disciplined? But I think the key conversation that Kwame Bamidele was trying to raise, just as Francis has said, is you filed the suit against defamation, went on to talk about sexual harassment, which has now become the mainstay of the conversation. Everybody's talking about,
nobody's talking about defamation. Everybody's
that
talking
you felt
about
defamed or maligned in the Senate. It's all about the fact that the Senate President tried to, sexually harass you. That's the conversation that has now taken. So it literally has to be, if you want to flip the case around, it now becomes the Senate President suing you for defamation of character at the end of the day. But there's a lot of sensationalism that can go on in these kinds of issues and sway. More like I think it was Defar to me that was saying all of this is just a distraction. Nigeria should not forget the main things. Let's see, can we get the Senate President's response, and that's where we'd call it a wrap on this particular issue.
Natasha, regarding the rules.
Thank you very much, Senate President. Again, I'm Senator Natasha Kututu, representing the good and virtuous people of Kogi Central. I beg to differ that this matter is sub judice. And I stand on privilege 10, or that 10
No, sorry.
Dear Senate President, please, with due respect, do you mind I have raised an order 10 privileges, sir, please? It's my right, Senate President. Order 10 on privileges, please. I believe, and please, would you?
I'm hearing you.
Any senator may rise at any time to speak upon a matter of privilege suddenly arising, and he or she shall be prepared to move without notice a motion declaring that the contempt or breach of privilege has been committed. I stand and I believe herefore, sir, that your denial, your refusal to accept and treat my petition before the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Abuse of my privileges, and I say forth, that this matter is not it is not before the court. The matter before the court is on the defamation and cyberbullying statements made by your special assistant on new media, Mr. Patrick Umfom, who addressed my decent outfits as transparent, thereby depicting that I walk sedulously and naked to the chambers. That is the nature of the petition, of the case in court. This petition, sir, has never been filed. The petition that alleges, or should I say, accuses you of making sexual harassment moves, abusing your office, and making malicious obstructions to my legislative functions has not been tendered anywhere before, no court in Nigeria. So, sir, I would appreciate if you kindly accept my petition and forward same to the Ethics and Privileges Committee so it could be treated. Thank you, sir.
Yes, first let's finish with Senator Bangunu. The Chief Whip of the Senate. Your point of order is sustained. Yes, distinguished Senator.
Mr. President, this Senate, Section 40, subsection 4, of which also says, no senator shall personally sign a petition to be laid before this Senate. It's not about committee on ethics. It's not about waiting for the committee to take a decision. It's about whether this matter is right to be referred to the committee. Mr. Senate President, you were being emotional because you didn't want to be seen as trying to stop this allegation. That was why you even allowed it to be referred. The Senate erred by referring it to the court. It's not competent to stand before the Senate. That is the issue. It was signed by the most distinguished Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, for whom I have a lot of respect. We cannot rewrite our rules because of anyone, and we'll be setting a dangerous precedent. Number 3, other than Constitution and the rules, the Senate is guided by customs and conventions, parliamentary customs and conventions. In all of these, Mr. President, this petition cannot stand for 2 reasons. 1, the issues and allegations of sexual harassment are already issued before the court. And 2, because it is defective. The petition is defective and it's in violation of Order 40, subsection 4 of our rules. And in view of this, Mr. President, I just want to say that there is no way we can accept this petition. And having said this, Mr. President, may I then most respectfully, since we have said we should go to the next order of the day, may I then respectfully urge our colleagues that we proceed to an executive session.
The Senate leaders' observations are noted. You've not moved a formal motion to that. But sorry, before you go there, I don't want to appear to have shut out any senator.
Yes, sir.
Senator Cyril first.
Yes, sir. I am coming under Order 42. I am coming under Order 42 by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate. A senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. Mr. Senate President, before I say what I want to say, I want to refer you to Psalm 34, line 19, which reads thus: "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him from them all." The righteous person faces many troubles, but the Lord comes to his rescue each time. Mr. President, I want to bring up a case that happened when when my former governor was the Minister of Federal Republic. Mr. President, I want to say this because my former governor is also going to bring a petition on the allegation that Senator Natasha alleged when he was a minister that Ajakuta steel mill.
Your mic.
Yes. If this is what is happening about character, then we have to expose the character of a petitioner. Mr. President, I am coming officially with a petition from my former governor on the allegation that he sold Ajakuta steel mill when he was a minister. And Senator Natasha was the one that alleged as at that time. And as of today, Mr. President, Ajakuta steel mill it still belongs to the federal government of Nigeria. I have just said this as a notice, sir. Thank you very much.
Well, point of order is noted. Let me
Order 10, please. Order 10 again.
Senate leader. Senate leader.
10, please. Order, please. Dear Senate President, I feel
brains are not working this morning because I really don't understand what is happening. You know, some persons were just mixing up the entire issue, and you know, there seems to be a lot of confusion. Well, calling to question the character of the petitioner, which would then be Natasha Akpoti, is one of the things that we have seen really shriveled around, you know, in the course of this case. But be it as it may, you know, we have some explanations in the order. I think you take that up and we just wrap up this conversation.
Well, there are a lot of things that things like this would throw up. I think literally when we have crisis in the National Assembly, that's when Nigerians are excited, because it helps us to dig deeper into what the rules, you know, and the orders of the National Assembly is. Let's go to, you know, privilege motions that we're talking about. A motion, as far as the privilege motion is concerned, which of course Senator Natasha had raised, a motion directly concerning the privileges of the Senate shall take precedence of all other public business. That's the standpoint of the state. The rule book says. Now, a senator who wishes to raise a matter which he believes to affect the privileges of the Senate shall do so as soon as possible after the matter comes to his attention. Such member shall inform the president of his wish, stating the facts to which he wishes to draw attention, at least 1 hour before the commencement of the sitting at which he wishes to raise the matter. At least 1 hour before the sitting. Now, of course, when a senator is called by the president to raise a matter of privileges, he shall briefly state the facts to which he wishes to draw the attention of the Senate and the grounds on which he believes that those facts affect the privileges of the Senate. Now, the president shall then state whether, in his opinion, the matter may or may not affect the privileges of the Senate, provided that if he deems it necessary, he may defer his decision until the next sitting of the Senate. Now, let's go past to the issue of suspending of standing orders of the House. Now, any one or more of these standing orders may, after notice or with the leave of the president, be suspended on a motion made by a senator at any sitting. A motion under this standing order shall be decided without amendment or debate. And that quickly just takes us to the general authority of the Senate president, which of course has also come under question. Now, the president shall have power to regulate the conduct of the business in all matters not provided for in these standing orders. The decision in all cases for which these standing orders may not be provided shall lie within the discretion of the president and shall not be open to challenge. The president shall be responsible for the management and general administration of the chamber. Now, when you look at all of this, you go back to some of the issues that the National Assembly members have raised. At the end of the day, the standing order, the rule book, the principles, all of the order, the processes and procedures that Senator Natasha should have taken, whether it is to bring up her case against Akpabio on sexual harassment or to raise concerns about the fact that she is being marginalized on the floor of the National Assembly, like she had highlighted, the fact that she's not been allowed to speak. She has attempted to raise motions for several times. On the 6th time, or at the 4th time or so, she was informed or advised by other senators to go meet with the Senate president. And I'm listening to that narrative and I'm asking, how are you being told by other senators to go speak to your friend, who is also the Senate president? Because these things are not adding up. And then you move from there to speaking to your friend, and then afterwards, that's when, at the 6th time, that's when your motion was listed and, you know, put into consideration. You're talking about the executive steel that has been raised by the senator who just spoke now in the clip that we had. The fact that, okay, this is your constituency. We all know the importance of the executive steel and what it holds for not just her constituency, but the generality of Nigeria. If you move a motion such as that, and your concern bothers on that, and the Senate is not working, there are other people within your state. There are other senators within your state. So what happens to forming an alliance? What happens to bringing others on board? What happens to channeling it to another person? If that is the situation, and you're perceiving that, oh, you are being marginalized by your family friend, who is also your Senate president, you did not consider all of this alternative route, but you went straight to misbehaving on the floor of the National Assembly. I have an issue with Nigerian court. I have a serious issue with Nigerian court, because when a Nigerian court is sitting down and ruling and restraining the National Assembly, or trying to restrain the National Assembly, which is something we have to dig deeper into, by the way, from disciplining a senator who has breached the rules, the principles, what are we protecting, or what are we projecting as a country? What is the Nigerian judiciary projecting?
Well, that question remains. We flip the law to the side, the person dictating the tune, so that's a serious allegation and continues to be a serious concern when we're talking about the judiciary. But those are the updates coming out of the, the now sexual harassment, allegation against the Senate president. I mean, how did we move from defamation of character to a bigger defamation of character? But then we'll just wrap up the conversation on that floor. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be joined by our guest, and we'll be looking into what is currently happening in the oil sector. Remember that there has been some perceived price war between the NNPCL and the Dangote group of companies, and Dangote refinery to be specific, and there are several other indices, including the drop of global oil price at this time. What does this mean, especially where the projections for the 2025 budget in Nigeria stands?